What's up, world? What's up, Zion? It's Prince Easy coming at you again once more. As usual, I do have a couple slides that I want to share with you in this fine day that we're having. And of course, this is gonna be updates, right, pertaining to what is unfolding in a geopolitical space, so to speak, right? So, before we get to those slides, I want to issue a disclaimer, right? For all the copyrighted material that's gonna be viewed in this here post, right? So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it, right? So this is the expanse of the interconnectedness of society today. Distance has been closed, hence a thing happening in a certain location can echo in another, right? And those who are waging this warfare know and understand this, but don't understand those who are under siege apprehend this. So, we're gonna see. I can almost bet he's gonna be ousted. He's gonna go. Right? And then I believe the people have a rude awakening, just like the people in the US over there. Right? Yeah. Well, words are just words, right? And I think we should learn so apparently new footage has come out, okay, that has the potential to change the direction of this case. So yeah, I hope the brother goes free, you know. This is I don't know, why do I have a feeling like the guy's being used as some sort of scapegoat or something? Hey, I don't know. Okay, so you know, this is really disturbing, but it hasn't become really popular because there's no controversy. I don't know if I should be saddened by that or concerned, because if it was just one hit and a black man, a migrant, I believe this would be of course. Now, like I said, the shift, right? Sudan, Somalia, and the AES, of course, right? And not to forget Tanzania, because we apparently have it all, and that's our problem, right? Hey, they have books and everything, but nah. Let's see what this one says.
He was born in Judea, in the the house of David. The Jewish Sanhedrin and those who they held sway over, and the Romans, were the material agents of his demise.
This is the real plan that's been running since the 1850s, and it's barreling toward World War III. Back then, they targeted two prizes, Palestine and Argentina. Palestine for control of the Middle East, Argentina, especially Patagonia, for a final refuge when the world burns. They took Palestine. Done. Now comes the Isaac Accords, Argentina's quiet surrender, turning it into an Israeli colony in all but name. Right now, they're burning Argentina down, wildfires everywhere, and buying the scorched land cheap. The tool, their fake NGO, that's Backpackers Without Borders, so-called backpackers, like with maps and cameras, supposedly mapping trails. In reality, they're intelligence operatives marking targets, befriending locals while they plan which part of the Patagonia to burn next. Why? Because the deal is sealed. Milei told Netanyahu, "Mi casa es su casa." If Nuremberg-style trials ever come for Israel, they've got their escape hatch here, just like the Nazis had in the 1940s. And the endgame? Nuclear World War III. Fallout winds blow east-west across the northern hemisphere, Europe, America, Asia.
That's important.
Devastated. Patagonia sits at the bottom of the planet, next to Antarctica. You do the math. They've got more in common with the Nazis than anyone wants to believe. The perfect arc for the new empire, while the North chokes on ash.
Him and his conspiracies, man. Well, I'm not late. I hope so. But Raisi, that was a strong pull-up right there. Okay, that was a strong pull-up. So, Jordanian MP, Mr. Ali, the American soldiers who were killed in Jordan were on a desert outing with sheep herders and were hit by stray bullets by accident. Okay, so as they don't try to retell the narrative, if you know what I mean. Okay, so what happens to those two individuals that were taken out in Jordan? Apparently, stray bullets struck them by accident while they were out with the sheep herders. This is Bandar Abbas and the Iranian people resisting as they should. So, apparently, right, this is just a conjecture, speculation, until we get more information. Right? Forward race, backward race. Guess who is the forward race? Please give it a guess. Well, also new information coming out of the Nolan Wales ordeal. And apparently this picture, right, is what, as they say, what broke the camel's back. Yeah. So apparently he was killed, then taken to the island, and then left there by these supposed friends, while others were watching, of course, and did nothing. Well, he had a first-hand encounter with the arrogance. There isn't any other way to phrase it. Arrogance. The type of arrogance that leads to self-destruction, you know. No, no, no. We're not camels. So, this is 2026. Hmm? This is what the Chinese have to say. This is what they had to do next, right? So, we have cow fats, right, being a problem when it comes to climate change, right? So they don't want us to eat beef anymore. They want us to eat cockroaches and bugs as such. Now they're gonna take rice, right? And this has been a long time coming, you know. Now they're gonna try to take rice. I don't know what they're gonna replace it with, you know. Maybe clay or something, you know. Flavored clay. Right? But the more they do this, it will become apparent to people that they want you dead, right? Not even unhealthy, but just dead, right? They just on their way there, right? To just straight up say, I think you should just die. You know, it would benefit society. So our focus is gonna be on Sudan for a couple rounds, right? And why am I leaving the Sudan and Congo situation unattended for a while if you have been following? Well, because these are what I call self-inflicted, right? It's like a person's antibodies attacking themselves. It's quite a complicated situation, you see. And the only way to resolve these conflicts is, for them to negotiate and talk, right? Because it's gonna be a back and forth for a really, really long time, right? The RSF is not going anywhere, right? Those people are better-handed and they are highly experienced. The same with the Sudanese army. But that's not the point. The point is the people stuck in the middle, right? Especially in these conflicts, right? So the situation will recalibrate itself without any form of intervention, right? That's why I've been holding back on that, me personally, right? Not that I'm not following what is happening there, I'm not aware. No, no. What I've done is enough. Now we're seeing more and more coming to the surface, right? Giving us even a clearer picture. So the site in Lead is where they found the proof of the Sudanese army using chemical weapons. The yellow is biggest refinery, one of the biggest refineries in Sudan. It quite reminds me of Mozambique. It's the same ordeal. This pettiness will lead to many people dying. Brother, I'm not gonna lie to you, brothers and sisters, right? I'm not. Like, people are stuck in this mode where they believe that the resources that we have are gonna run out and we're gonna be in peril at one point. Well, this is all manufactured. This is all manufactured to give precedent to events like wars, right? So now it's gonna shift sooner or later. The conversation is gonna shift. It's gonna be about resources in Sudan. Just as soon as one party gains the upper hand, you're gonna hear the conversation shift, just like it is doing right now. So, Bulgaria now is apparently involved. So, just like I showed you the last time, and the agents have been activated, and there are many, right? These agents, there are many, plenty on YouTube, quite popular, if you know what I mean. Why? Because they're artificial, they're not organic, they're artificial, and their focus is on the Russian contingency or contingent on in the AES, right? The last time they called them Wagner, right? The mercenaries, right? Now it's the cartel, right? That they want to make the impression that they're operating in free reign, just like the Ukrainians, they want to make it seem like if you hit a vehicle in a convoy of the supposed mercenaries, they call them Wagner, which is now African Corps, right? You'll only kill Russians. That's the impression they want to make. And this is going to be a thing, right? Blaming Russia and China, they pivot. Why? Because it works. Hence, the people are supposed to face the consequences of their stupidity, and they are. If it wasn't so effective, these people would not be getting away with it, right? All of that big talk. They fear-mongered you into Iran, we need money. Now, yeah, you gave them $1 trillion out of thin air. Yeah, now China is planning to do that. This is what is happening in Lebanon. Now they have come out with the big guns and and the funny hats and stuff. No, please. This is embarrassing for you. Okay? This is what the parliamentary speaker had to say. Just real talk. Because they understand the barbarity and the savagery. They apprehend. They have seen it firsthand. What happens? Something is happening to Vance, eh? So, like I said, Sudan in the center of the conversation. Right now, many people have this opinion that now the people in the Middle East over there with influence in the Sudan now are gonna be the ones handling the situation, and the Russians and the Chinese and the Americans and the Europeans have consented to that whole ordeal. But the problem is that the Sudanese army, right? The government is demanding them to basically give up all their territory, right? And some are recommending that they partition the West into I don't know, not borders per se, but ruling zones and stuff, right? So as peace can prevail over there, right? And now we are hearing, of course, the UAE and the RSF are meeting now, right? So most of the gold is being held by the RSF, right? In every matrix, they should be considered traitors to the Sudanese people, right? Why? Because they jeopardize the national security for their own personal gain, and there's no other way to go about it, right? There's no other way to go about it. They became a political pawn. They abandoned their purpose, right? And now more and more is coming out, and we shall see even more and more, right? Just like the Congo situation, right? We waited and we got exactly what the picture is and what it is about, right? It's a Congolese problem. The Congolese are the only people that can resolve that situation. We tried all of the armed means, if you know what I mean, and it pushed it to a certain degree to where it is right now, in a better position than it was. So the Congolese are the ones to finish up, right? And of course, uh, business, right? Business, right? South Sudan, right? Come with your business people here in Tanzania, right? In the meantime, right, as I don't know, sense of calm or a footing of calm is being found, right? A shift needs to happen, right? So in that deal, right, the Ugandans also have to be like there, right? You have to visit also the Uganda, right? They have been carrying the weight for the Sudanese people, right? And they're being ignored. Why? Because the focus has not been the people. It has always been the interests, right? And if people then in these countries embody these foreign interests, thinking that they are fighting for their own interests at the end of this, right? Their naivety, right? It's gonna end horribly, right? Now I'm trying to find out, and I'm gonna find out sooner or later what type of thing, right? I'm speculating it's oil. It's gonna be about oil, right? That's why I know Somalia is also gonna be part of the conversation, right? So I'm waiting to see, to hear, right? Second time, this nuclear bombers, right? The last time it was in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Strategic bombers, Now there are other bombers now coming in. So, the video on top is pertaining to the threats given to the pro-government tribal movement. I think it's I've forgotten the name, but you can watch the video to get the context, right? Basically, they are targeting these people specifically to weaken them. So they say. Why? Because they are pro-government and they are seen as, I don't know, traitors or some kind, So the JNIM and the FLA have issued a warning, right? Is the threat real? Yes, right? Yes. So, as usual, throwing shots. If you listen to that speech, then you know exactly what First Post is doing here. Drawing parallels between the end of Sankara and please. Right? This is also very familiar, just like the comments of some Arabs that we covered last time, right? That black people are supposed to worship and venerate, right? We heard that from the Jews. I covered it here also. Right? Now let's see. The sole purpose of the non-Jew is to serve Jews. They will work, they will plow, they will reap. We will sit like an elephant and eat. That is the Gentile. That is why the Gentiles were created. Right? Okay. Now the information is coming out also. Trump's administration weighs military options and Mali official, right? Of course, as usual, they're trying to insert their penis in everything, right? And of course, it's gonna be followed by a demand, right? A threat and a demand. That's how they message their situation. Just like how the CIA was involved in the protests here in Tanzania, right? They start something, right? They threaten you, and then they come in with, right? So they are weighing, right? Just like when they say to us in Tanzania over here, we are, right? We are going through our agreements and seeing if it's worth it, right? We are reevaluating, right? Right? If approved, it would add an 8 nation and then it goes on to talk about those 8 countries that they have bombed, right? Somalia being one of them, right? Heavily, right? Heavily, right? In his first term and his second term, right? It's like his ways of therapy, venting his frustration is to use the drones. I bet he's controlling the drones with like a PlayStation controller or something, So, they're saying there are disagreements among U.S. senior U.S. officials, right, on attacking the military groups, right? They're not talking about all of them. They're talking about one of them, okay? And of course, they have the audacity to mention Al-Qaeda, right? They are affiliate, right? They have so many affiliation, it's not even funny, right? The Americans have an affiliation to Ukraine, through Al-Qaeda, through the Europeans, and they're just there pretending as if they done nothing, Of course, they apparently the Malians officials have said nothing, and yeah, that's where we are, right? And they're saying, right, the president does not intend to reveal his cards, so to speak, right? And he has been urging the governments of North and West Africa to purchase U.S. equipment and services to support their war effort against terrorism. There goes the request, right? And of course, Nafakara, the brother, did a proper pipeline of how everything is disseminated. Right? The alliance of the Sahel consists of Mali, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, right? And all Western Africa military leaders have recently ousted democratically elected governments in coups, largely cut ties with West and turned to Russia for security help. But the administration official pinned the blame not on those governments, but on the Russian partners, saying that Moscow has proven to be an ineffective security partner for Mali. We hope that other African nations take note of Russia's terrible performance in combating terrorism, right? Like I said, the African core is the target in their campaign of mis and disinformation. And trust me, we're going to see some stuff, right? Because there isn't no line these people will not cross. Right, West Africa senior analyst of the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project said that the Malian military and the Russian backers are responsible for killing hundreds more civilians than the JNM and the IS Sahel combined last year. Right, they have the statistics and stuff to prove. And the Malian military and its Russian partners were responsible for 925 civilian deaths. Okay, so they have calculated what, so they are agreeing at least, JNM and the IS and the ISIS or Al Qaeda affiliates are responsible for civilian deaths. But what they're arguing is that the Malian army has more deaths, right? And they go on to say, last year the Malian military and Russia and military and its Russian partners were responsible for 924 civilian deaths according to ACLED, compared with the 232 by the Islamist militants. It is extremely problematic that a government like the US or any Western partner would provide support to those regimes whose legitimacy remain contested. By who and why does it matter? I don't know. And which are incredibly fragile and repressive, right? He said, referring to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, right? So repressive and fragile. That's what they are terming. Right? But emphasis on the Russian partner. So yeah, those are the updates as far as update goes. And really, there's nothing that has changed. Right? Nothing that has changed. The posturing of these people are hostile. Their language is hostility. And you'd be lying to yourself if you believe the narrative that there's genuine conversation going on here. And in my word, personally, in my encounter with them, yeah, I don't trust them. So that's what we have right now. And again, in one way or the other, they have the consent of the people, so I should be seeing a lot of crying and whining and gnashing of teeth out there. right? Especially when it comes to issues of war, right? Because the way I look at it is this whole environment of war benefits no one. It hasn't. So the question that frustrates most is why? So anyway, we're gonna try to quote unquote discover that, right? So yeah, um, I'm gonna put a pin on it right there, and we're gonna see each other, or rather hear from each other when we hear from each other. Prince Easy, I love you. Bye.